In 1932, the Australian government sent soldiers armed with machine guns to fight a war against birds, and the birds won. This is not a legend or a tall tale invented in a pub. It was a genuine military operation, authorized by the Minister of Defence, and it remains one of the strangest campaigns in modern history. To understand how a nation ended up at war with emus, you have to go back to the end of the First World War. Australia had settled thousands of returning veterans on farmland across the Western Australian Wheatbelt, handing the marginal, half-cleared country and encouraging them to grow wheat. It was punishing work. Then came the Great Depression. Wheat prices collapsed, promised government subsidies were slow to arrive, and by 1932 these soldier settlers were already teetering on the edge of ruin. And then the emus came. Emus are large, flightless birds native to Australia, standing up to nearly 2 meters tall and capable of running at around 50 kilometers an hour. Each year, after their breeding season, they migrate inland in search of water. In 1932, an estimated 20,000 of them descended on the Wheatbelt and discovered that the farmers had thoughtfully provided vast fields of grain and fresh water. The birds moved in, trampling crops, devouring wheat, and tearing gaps in fences that then let rabbits pour through to finish the job. Desperate, the farmers, many of them ex-soldiers themselves, appealed to the government. They didn't ask for money. They asked for machine guns. The request landed on the desk of the Minister of Defence, Sir George Pearce, and remarkably, he agreed. The reasoning was that the guns would make short work of the birds, the exercise would be good target practice, and it might even generate some positive publicity. Pearce would later be mockingly nicknamed the Minister of the Emu War. The mission was handed to Major G.P.W. Meredith of the 7th Heavy Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery. He commanded a force of exactly 2 other men, Sergeant McMurray and Gunner O'Halloran, armed with 2 Lewis light machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. In early November 1932, they arrived in the district around Campion, ready to do battle. It went wrong almost immediately. The soldiers spotted a group of around 50 emus, but the birds were out of range, so local farmers tried to herd them toward the guns. The emus split apart and scattered, running in every direction. When the machine guns finally opened fire, they killed only a handful before the flock vanished. The emus, it turned out, were fast, tough, and nearly impossible to hit at a distance. A few days later, Meredith attempted an ambush at a dam where over 1,000 emus had gathered. This time the gun jammed after killing only about a dozen, and the rest fled once more. Growing inventive, Meredith mounted one of the Lewis guns on the back of a truck and gave chase. It was hopeless. The truck couldn't match the emu's speed over the rough ground, the ride was far too bumpy to aim, and at one point the vehicle reportedly crashed into a fence. The birds simply outran their pursuers. One ornithologist later observed that the emus had effectively adopted guerrilla tactics, breaking into small units so that no single volley could do much damage. Each mob even seemed to have a wary leader keeping watch while the others fed. By around the 6th of November, only about a week in, the operation was withdrawn amid growing ridicule. Meredith reported firing roughly 2,500 rounds. The number of emus actually killed is genuinely debated. Estimates range from a few dozen to perhaps 200 or 300, and different sources give wildly different figures, so treat any precise number with caution. What everyone agreed on was that the campaign had been an embarrassment. In Parliament, politicians openly mocked it, and it was suggested the emus deserved medals for their tactics. There is also a famous quote attributed to Major Meredith, in which he supposedly compared the emus to Zulu warriors and marveled that if we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world. It's a wonderful line, but you should be skeptical, because its exact wording and origin are hard to verify and it may well have been polished over the decades. After the farmers renewed their complaints, the campaign was actually resumed later in November and dragged on into early December. Meredith claimed better results the second time. By his final report, he said his men had killed just under 1,000 emus using nearly 10,000 rounds, which works out to roughly 10 bullets per bird. Even those numbers are disputed. And crucially, the crop damage never really stopped. By December of 1932, the Emu War was quietly called off for good. The farmers asked for military help again in 1934, and again in later years, and each time they were refused. Instead, the government turned to a bounty system, paying hunters per bird, which proved far more effective than any machine gun. In the long run, it was humble exclusion fencing, thousands of kilometers of barrier fence, that did the most to keep the birds out. And here is the final, delicious irony. The emu was never defeated. It remains so central to Australian identity that it stands, to this day, on the nation's coat of arms, one of the very few creatures ever to win a war against a modern army, and then get engraved on the loser's official crest. If you want more forgotten history that sounds made up but isn't, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.